My name is Mr. Silent. I'm not here to sell you dreams or give you temporary motivation. I'm here to give you a way of thinking that quietly makes your tomorrow better. With discipline, calm, and strength. Most people talk about building a better tomorrow, but very few understand what it actually requires. They chase motivation, look for shortcuts, and wait for the perfect moment. But tomorrow is not built by noise, excitement, or words. It is built quietly, through the choices you make when no one is watching. A stronger tomorrow doesn't begin with changing the world around you. It begins with controlling the world inside you. The way you stay silent when your ego wants to speak. The way you stay disciplined when your emotions want comfort. The way you respect yourself enough to walk away from what weakens you. Silence teaches you control. Discipline teaches you direction. And self-respect teaches the world how to treat you, without you ever having to explain yourself. In a loud world, those who move quietly often become the strongest. Not because they are seen, but because they are solid. And when tomorrow arrives, it doesn't reward the loudest voice. It rewards the most prepared mind. Tomorrow is not accidental because nothing meaningful in life appears without intention. The future you experience is not a matter of luck, coincidence, or sudden opportunity. It is the direct outcome of what you repeatedly choose today. Every habit you practice, every thought you allow to stay in your mind, and every action you take is quietly shaping what tomorrow will look like. Most people underestimate this because results do not appear immediately, but time never forgets what you consistently feed it. People often say they want a better tomorrow, yet their daily behavior remains unchanged. They hope for improvement while repeating the same routines, the same excuses, and the same distractions. This is where the illusion of accident is created. When tomorrow arrives and nothing has improved, it feels unfair or unexpected, but in reality, it is perfectly aligned with yesterday's decisions. Growth does not surprise those who prepare for it, and failure does not shock those who ignored responsibility. Every small choice matters more than dramatic moments. Choosing to wake up on time instead of hitting snooze. Choosing to stay silent instead of arguing. Choosing discipline over comfort. And choosing self-respect over temporary pleasure may seem insignificant in the moment. But these choices compound. Over days, weeks, and months, they build momentum. That momentum becomes character, and character becomes destiny. Tomorrow is simply the continuation of who you are today. The mind often seeks shortcuts because patience is uncomfortable. People want visible change without invisible effort. They want respect without self-control, success without sacrifice, and peace without discipline. But tomorrow cannot be fooled. It reflects exactly what was invested. If you invest confusion, distraction, and inconsistency, tomorrow will reflect instability. If you invest clarity, discipline, and restraint, tomorrow will return strength. Understanding that tomorrow is designed today puts responsibility back into your hands. It removes the excuse of blame and replaces it with ownership. This realization can feel heavy, but it is also empowering. If your future is not accidental, then it is adjustable. You're not trapped by yesterday unless you repeat it. Each day becomes a chance to redesign what is coming, not through dramatic announcements, but through quiet alignment of actions and values. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, fear, or a lack of confidence. But in reality, it is one of the strongest forms of control a person can develop. Silence is not the absence of thought or expression. It is the discipline of choosing when and how to respond. In a world that constantly demands reaction, the ability to remain silent is a sign of inner stability. It shows that you're not controlled by impulses, emotions, or the need for validation. Most people speak to release pressure, not to create value. They explain themselves too much, argue to prove a point, and react emotionally to protect their ego. Silence breaks this pattern. When you choose silence, you give yourself time to observe, think, and understand before acting. This pause separates thoughtful individuals from reactive ones. It allows clarity to rise where noise would only create confusion. Silence also strengthens self-awareness. When you are quiet, You hear more than just words. You notice intentions, patterns, and truths that are often hidden behind noise. You begin to understand people without them saying much, and more importantly, you begin to understand yourself. Your fears, your triggers, and your strengths become clearer when they are not drowned out by constant expression. This awareness becomes a powerful guide in decision-making. There is also dignity in silence. Not every situation deserves your energy, and not every opinion requires your response. Silence becomes a boundary that protects your mental and emotional space. When you stop reacting to everything, you regain control over where your energy goes. This control builds confidence because you're no longer seeking approval or reacting to provocation. You are responding from choice, not pressure. Silence creates respect without demanding it. People are naturally drawn to those who are calm and composed, especially in moments of tension. When you remain silent while others lose control, your presence carries weight. Your words, when you finally speak, become more impactful because they are rare and intentional. Silence teaches restraint, and restraint creates authority. On a deeper level, silence builds inner strength. It trains patience, sharpens focus, and reduces unnecessary conflict. It allows you to conserve energy for what truly matters. Over time, this practice creates emotional resilience. You become less shaken by opinions, less disturbed by negativity, and less dependent on external validation. Silence becomes a source of power, not because it hides you, but because it grounds you. It teaches you that you do not need to explain yourself to everyone, that your growth does not require an audience, and that your strength does not need noise to exist. Discipline is often mistaken for punishment, restriction, or a loss of freedom, but in reality is an act of self-respect and self-loyalty. Discipline means doing what you promised yourself you would do, even when your mood changes, even when motivation fades, and even when no one is watching. It is the quiet agreement you make with yourself and honor every day, not because it feels good, but because it builds the life you want. Most people live controlled by emotions. They work when they feel inspired, stay consistent when it is convenient, and quit when discomfort appears. Discipline breaks this cycle. It replaces emotional decision-making with intentional action. When you act with discipline, you are no longer a servant to your impulses. You become the authority over your own behavior. This shift creates stability in a world driven by distraction and instant gratification. Discipline is also freedom in its purest form. Without discipline, your time, energy, and focus are constantly pulled in different directions. Comfort decides your schedule, distractions decide your priorities, and excuses decide your limits. Discipline removes chaos by creating structure. It allows you to decide in advance who you want to be and then act in alignment with that decision. This structure does not trap you. It protects you from regret. Every disciplined action strengthens trust in yourself. When you keep promises to yourself, confidence grows naturally. You no longer need external motivation or validation because your identity becomes rooted in consistency. This inner trust becomes a powerful force. It affects how you speak, how you carry yourself, and how you face challenges. You stop doubting your ability to follow through because you have evidence of your own reliability. Discipline also teaches patience. Results rarely appear immediately, and discipline trains you to work without instant reward. This patience separates those who achieve long-term success from those who quit early. While others look for shortcuts, disciplined individuals focus on progress. They understand that small, repeated actions compound into meaningful change. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes automatic, and what once required effort becomes part of who you are. Thus, self-respect is the foundation upon which every other form of respect is built. It begins internally, long before it is reflected by the world. How you treat yourself in private determines how others are allowed to treat you in public. When you value your time, your energy, and your principles, you naturally set standards, and those standards shape your relationships, decisions, and direction in life. Many people seek respect by demanding it, explaining themselves, or trying to please everyone. But respect cannot be negotiated or begged for. It is communicated silently through boundaries, consistency, and behavior. When you tolerate what drains you, accept what lowers your standards, or remain in situations that compromise your values, you teach others how to treat you. Self-respect is the courage to walk away from anything that requires you to abandon who you are becoming. Self-respect also means honesty with yourself. It requires acknowledging your strengths without arrogance and your weaknesses without denial. This honesty allows growth. When you respect yourself, you stop lying to protect your comfort. You stop making excuses for habits that hold you back. You choose responsibility over avoidance because you understand that growth demands accountability. This inner integrity creates alignment between who you say you are and how you live. There's strength in choosing yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable. Self-respect often requires silence instead of explanation, distance instead of confrontation, and patience instead of reaction. It is not about proving your worth to others. It is about refusing to compromise it. When your actions reflect self-respect, your presence becomes calm and grounded. You no longer seek approval because your validation comes from within. Self-respect also influences the quality of your discipline. When you value yourself, you are more willing to invest in habits that strengthen your mind, body, and character. You protect your time, choose growth over comfort, and avoid environments that weaken your focus. This protection is not arrogance. It is responsibility. You understand that your potential deserves care, not neglect. Over time, self-respect changes the way the world responds to you. People sense when someone knows their worth. Conversations become different. Opportunities change. Boundaries are rarely challenged. This does not happen because you demand better treatment, but because your behavior no longer invites disrespect. Self-respect becomes a quiet authority that speaks louder than words. It teaches you that you do not need to be loud to be strong, and you do not need to explain yourself to be understood. When you honor yourself consistently, life begins to reflect that honor back to you in ways that feel natural, stable, and earn the ability to respond calmly instead of reacting emotionally is a mark of inner maturity and strength. Reaction is automatic, driven by ego, fear, or impulse, while response is intentional, guided by awareness and control. Most conflicts, regrets, and broken relationships are not caused by situations themselves, but by unfiltered emotional reactions in the heat of the moment. Learning to pause creates space between stimulus and action, and within that space lies power. Emotional reactions feel justified because they are immediate. Anger wants to be expressed, frustration wants release, and ego wants defense. But reacting rarely solves the problem. It often multiplies it. When you react, you hand control of your behavior to external circumstances. Someone else's words, tone, or actions begin to dictate your emotional state. Calm response takes that control back. It allows you to choose how much influence a situation deserves over you. Responding calmly does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist. It means acknowledging what you feel without letting it drive your actions. This awareness creates clarity. You begin to see the situation as it is, not as your emotions exaggerated. From this clarity, decisions become measured instead of impulsive. Words become thoughtful instead of sharp. Silence becomes an option instead of weakness. Calm responses also shift the dynamic of any interaction. When others expect emotional reactions and are met with composure, tension loses its fuel. Arguments weaken. Manipulation fails. Your calmness becomes a mirror that reflects imbalance back to those who lack control. This does not require dominance or confrontation. It happens naturally when you refuse to engage emotionally. People quickly realize they cannot provoke you into losing control. This discipline strengthens your self-respect. Every time you choose response over reaction, you reinforce the belief that your peace is valuable. You stop apologizing for emotions you never should have expressed. You stop replaying conversations in your mind, wishing you'd stayed calm. Instead, you build trust in your ability to handle pressure with dignity. That trust becomes confidence, Responding calmly also improves long-term outcomes. Emotional reactions seek immediate relief, while calm responses focus on resolution. Whether in personal relationships, professional environments, or internal struggles, thoughtful responses protect your reputation, relationships, and direction. Over time, this ability becomes a defining trait. You are seen as reliable, composed, and grounded. Mastering this skill requires practice. It means slowing your breath, delaying your words, and observing before acting. It means accepting that not every battle needs to be fought, and not every comment needs an answer. Calm response is not about winning arguments. It is about winning control over yourself. When you stop reacting emotionally, you begin acting intentionally. And intention is what builds stability, strength, and respect in every area of life. Quiet consistency is often overlooked because it lacks drama, visibility, and immediate praise. In a world that celebrates bold announcements and public declarations, steady effort done in silence can seem insignificant. It is this quiet consistency that builds real strength and lasting results. Loud promises create expectations, but consistent action creates trust. When you stop talking about what you plan to do and start doing it repeatedly, progress becomes inevitable. Many people rely on motivation to begin, but consistency is what carries them forward. Motivation is emotional and temporary, rising and falling with mood and circumstance. Consistency is deliberate. It shows up regardless of how you feel. Quiet consistency does not need external validation or recognition. It is rooted in commitment rather than excitement. This makes it reliable, and reliability is what transforms potential into reality. There is power in moving without announcing every step. When you work quietly, you reduce pressure and comparison. You're no longer performing for an audience or adjusting your pace to match others. Your focus remains internal. This focus allows deeper concentration, better learning, and fewer distractions. You conserve energy by avoiding unnecessary explanations and debates about your goals. Silence protects your momentum. Quiet consistency also builds credibility over time. People may doubt words, but they cannot deny patterns. When actions align day after day, trust develops naturally. You do not need to convince anyone of your seriousness. Your behavior speaks for you. This kind of credibility is strong because it is earned, not requested. It survives criticism and outlasts trends because it is built on evidence. Consistency in silence also strengthens self-discipline. Each small action reinforces the habit of showing up. Over time, effort becomes routine rather than struggle. The mind adapts, resistance weakens, and discipline becomes identity. What once required willpower becomes automatic. This transformation does not happen through bursts of effort, but through steady repetition. Loud promises often collapse under their own weight. Public declarations create pressure to impress rather than progress. When results take time, enthusiasm fades and embarrassment grows. Quiet consistency avoids this trap. It allows room for mistakes, adjustment, and learning without judgment. Growth becomes personal rather than performative. Over the long term, quiet consistency shapes character. It teaches patience, humility, and resilience. You learn to trust the process instead of chasing attention. You become comfortable working without applause. This mindset builds internal strength, making you less dependent on recognition and more focused on purpose. When results finally appear, they speak with clarity and weight because they were built slowly, steadily, and honestly through actions that were never announced, but always repeated.